Okay, so this week is Parshas Lech Lecha, and it's a very nice week, right? It's a great Parsha. A lot of things are happening in it, but what's so special about this week's Torah portion is that we have the first Jew who is Avraham. That is Avraham. And the first Jew is commanded right at the beginning of the Torah portion to do something. Lech lecha, go out of your land, go to the land that I will show you. And this is, of course, a lot of faith in God. So let's talk a little about the things that happen in this week's Parsha. So first of all, it starts with God commanding Abraham. We don't know anything about Abraham. All we know is God right away says to him, Lech lecha, go out from your land and your birthplace and your father's house to the land that I'm going to show you. And from you I will make this great nation. Okay, so he's commanded to go out, and he is supposed to go to the land of Canaan, which is Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and teach Torah there. But when he gets there, there's a famine in the land, and so there's no food, so he can't stay there. And this was actually one of his tests. This was one of the tests that he was given, because God just told him, go to the land of Canaan. He goes there, he listens, leaves everything, goes there, and what is there? This famine. So because a famine, there's no food.
What is famine?
No food.
Ra'av,
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So
no food in the land. He has to go. So he has to descend to where? To the land of Mitzrayim, to Egypt, in order to get food, because there's food there. And when he goes down to the land of Egypt, he realizes that his wife is very beautiful. And he's afraid that they're going to take her because she's a beautiful woman. So he says to her, say you are my sister, and so they'll be good to me. And we're going to talk about what does that mean? How could he be saying this? And what ends up happening is the king does take her, but the king releases her when he is smitten, when he's hit by an angel who hits him. And he lets Avraham and Sara leave with a tremendous amount of presents, b'rechush gadol, with a lot of property that he gives them, a lot of things that he gives them in order when they leave. So this is also in this week's Torah portion. We have right after that what's called the Brit Bein Habsarim, Habtarim, which is the covenant of the parts. Avram takes different animals and he splits them and he makes this covenant with God. And this is actually talking about, if we know Kabbalah, this is talking about different nations that are going to be taking over the Jewish people and putting them in exile. And that's when Avraham realizes, he gets this very negative prophetic vision of exile. And God says to him, yes, your children are going to be in exile in a land that's not theirs, and they'll make it difficult for them, they'll subjugate them, but afterwards they will leave, and they'll leave b'rechush gadol. This is the exile in Egypt, the first exile in Egypt, which we see happens later on. So that happens in this week's Torah portion. After that, Avraham and Sara have been married already for several years, and they realize that they are childless. They can't have any children. So Sara tells Avraham, take my maidservant, which is Hagar, and marry her. And we're told that Hagar was actually from Egypt. Originally, she was a princess from Egypt, and she left because she wanted this beautiful life that she saw, the morality that she saw in Avram's house. So she says, take her, marry her. He does, and she has a child. The child is Ishmael. And it's when she has a child that suddenly she becomes very arrogant and haughty against Sarah. So Sarah tries to subjugate her. She flees. The angel tells her, return, go back, and I promise you'll have many, many children. There'll be a very wild boy, but he'll have a lot of descendants. 13 years later, Abraham and Sarah still don't have any children, but they are promised that they will have their own child, and this will be Yitzchak, that God promises you will have your own child, but first you have to have a brit milah. You have to circumcise yourself and your entire family. Also change your name from Avram to Avraham, from Sarai to Sarah. And we're going to talk about that change of name.
And they had also brit for Ishmael.
And Ishmael also has the Brit Milah when he was how old at this time? He was 13. Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. No,
No,
he was 13 at this time. Okay, so that's what's all. Lots of things are happening in this week's Torah portion. That's just a summary of what's going on. And there's so much to talk about, but we're going to try to focus on a little bit of it. So.
And his Yitzchak's name because Sara was laughing.
Because she was laughing. Yes, yes, exactly. So let's talk about some of the things, and that we'll talk about next week, but not this week.
Oh, okay.
But let's talk a little about what's going on here. So first of all, we have this Lech Lecha. It starts off, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, leave your land, mimoladetecha, leave your birthplace, umibeit avicha, your father's home, El haaretz asher aracha. Go to, let me take you out of, leave everything that you know, and just go to this unknown place that I'm commanding you. Now, before we even get into these things, these different parts that Avram is supposed to leave, who is this Avram? We don't really know anything about Avraham. We just have this communication. Avram is already well in his 70s at this time.
Wow.
And God is communicating with him. Yeah, he's very young. And God is communicating with him. We don't know anything in the week's Torah portion about his background. The Midrash tells us that when he was a little child, he grew up in his father's home, in Terach's home, who was an idol worshiper, and he knocked down all the idols, and he says, how could you worship something? You know, the big idol killed all the other idols, and his father says, that's crazy. These idols don't have hands, they can't talk, they can't move. And he says, so why are you worshiping something that is unable to move? So we know that when Avram was a little child, he was trying to understand God. Who is God? Who is the creator of this world? Who is this higher power who created it? It's impossible that you have a castle without an owner, without someone who created it, who built it. And through his mind and through his knowledge, he started wondering, who is this God? And he realized that there is this God in this world who created all the world, who created everything. And he started teaching about morality and teaching about this God and teaching monotheism, how until then there was all these powers, and the powers were the wind and the sun and the moon and all these things. And he realized these things are just transient. These are not the power. There's something that created all these things, and that is God. So Avram came to that realization. But we don't have any of this in this week's Torah portion. And we're told even before this week's Torah portion, we're told he was in Ur Kasdim, and he was thrown into a dungeon, and he was thrown into a fiery furnace because he did not bow down to the idols of the time. And they were ready to kill him. And he stood strong, and he stood to his belief, and God saved him from it. God took him out of that. That was one of the many tests that he was given in order to see, does he actually fear God? Does he actually believe in this God? So the question is, why isn't this all written? This is like fascinating information. And this is also so important for us to know about who this Avraham is. And if the Torah didn't want to go into all the details about the stories, at least tell us, just like when we were introduced to Noah, right before the Mabul, before the flood, it tells us Noah was a good man. He was a good man in the eyes of God. We don't see any of that with Avraham. We don't see Avraham was a tzaddik. Avraham was a good man. Avraham was a man who feared God. All it says is, Lech Lecha, go out. And the question is, why? And like everything, there's always a deep answer. And the answer is, we have to understand, when we talk about Avraham was the first Jew. He was the first Jew. And we're seeing, what does it mean to be a Jew? What does it mean to be a Jew? And how can we, in our own lives, personify this idea of being a Jew? So it doesn't tell us about Avram's awareness of God. It doesn't tell us about Avram's good deeds. It doesn't tell us about his knowledge and trying to understand God. It simply tells us God is communicating with Avram. When we look at ourselves as the Jewish people, what makes us the Jewish people? What makes someone Jewish? When you look at any other religion, what makes a person religious? The thing that makes them religious is that they believe. Knowledge. They believe in it. Mm-hmm. The second thing that makes a person religious is that they go and they do whatever it is that they're supposed to do. They go to church, they attend church, they go to synagogue, they do. In Judaism, it's telling us, it doesn't matter what you know, what your knowledge is, what you believe. It doesn't matter what you do. You are a Jew because you're a Jew. Why are you a Jew?
Because your mother was.
Because your mother was. You're a Jew because your mother was. That's the technical thing. But you're a Jew because God chose you. Oh. And this is what we say. Ata bechartanu mikol ha'amim. You, God, chose us from all the nations of the world. It's not something that we did. I mean, obviously, Avram was a tzaddik. He was a great person. But it wasn't his doing that caused God to choose him. God chose him. He was chosen. We are the chosen.
That's why everyone hates us.
That's why everyone hates us. And that comes with a lot of obligation. But that is the fact. He was chosen. Avraham, the Torah doesn't start with all the things that Avraham did and all his knowledge and all that, learning and understanding and figuring out about God. That's not what it starts with. It doesn't even start with all the things that he was doing, the good deeds that he was doing. It doesn't start with that. It starts with simply God choosing him to teach us that what does it mean to be a Jew? It means to be chosen by God. That's what a Jew is. And when we look at the mitzvot, those are ways that we can bond with God. Those are ways that we can connect with God. But you're Jewish whether or not you do mitzvot or not. You're Jewish whether or not you believe in God or not. You're Jewish whether or not you know that there's a God in this world, whether you even know that there's a Judaism, that there's a Jewish religion. You're Jewish no matter what. Why? Because God chose you. And it's a fascinating idea, like when you think about it, because you don't have any other religion that's like that. There's no such thing as being another religion, but I'm not believing in it. But I'm against it. There's no such thing. If you believe in Christianity, so you're a Christian. If you believe in Islam, so you're a Muslim. You can't say I'm a Muslim, but I don't believe in any of it. I don't do any of it, but I'm still that. And with Judaism, that's the way it is. You are Jewish no matter what. Even if you're not doing anything, even if you don't know anything, you're just as Jewish as the next person who might be the most righteous person, who might be doing all the Torah, who might be the most observant Jew. You are Jewish just like them. Wow. Right? Can you imagine that?
No.
It's like, it's unfathomable. There's no level, oh, she's not really Jewish because she doesn't keep Torah or mitzvot. No, you're just as Jewish as the person who keeps every little dot of the Torah. Same thing.
These people in...
They got to learn that, yes.
Yeah, they just said that we are not Jews.
No, just as Jewish. There's no such thing. It's not like you're partly Jewish. You're not, either you're Jewish or you're not Jewish. And if once you're Jewish all the way. You're 100% Jewish. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you do. You're 100% Jewish. Why? Because God chose you. Ata bechartanu mikol ha'amim. God chose us from all the nations. And when we even look at the mitzvot of the Torah, it's interesting. So there is the commandments that God gave the nations of the world, and those are the 7 Noachide commandments. And what is the purpose of the Noachide commandment? The purpose is really to refine themselves, to become more refined beings. Don't kill, establish judges, don't eat animals that are alive. All the things that you're supposed to do. Don't have adultery. Don't do these things that are going to make you an unrefined person. Do these things that are going to refine you. This is going to refine humanity. When we talk about the mitzvot of the Torah, some are to refine us, but that's not the primary objective of the mitzvot of the Torah. Obviously, by doing the mitzvot, we are going to become more refined human beings. But the purpose of a mitzvah is to connect to God. And that's why some mitzvot we don't even understand. Don't wear wool and linen together. Doesn't make you a better person if you don't wear wool and linen shotness together. If you don't wear a garment that's made out of wool and linen, how does that make you a better person? It doesn't. Even if you keep Shabbat, okay, we could say It's nice. It's family time. And that's not why we do. We keep Shabbat because this is what God told us to do. We keep the holidays because this is what God told us to do. We do the mitzvot that we do. We don't eat certain animals because it's kosher and certain animals that are not. We can understand it a little bit, but why are we really doing it? Because this is what God told us. This is what God told us to do. So mitzvot are really our way of bonding with God. We're saying, God, you chose us and we want to be your people. So tell us what we're supposed to do. Because a person could be the most refined person, but compared to God, there's this, it's an infinite distance, right? We could be the most, as refined as we can get, the most refined person that you can be. The distance between us and God is infinite. It's such a huge difference. We can never be refined enough that we're like God. I mean, we can emulate God, we can act in God's way, in the way that God wants us, but we can never be refined enough as God. We can never be knowledgeable enough that we understand God, because we're not God. We don't want a God that we understand, right? That's not a God that we want to serve. So as much knowledge as we can have, as much refinement as we can have, we are not going to get closer to God. We're not going to narrow that distance between us and God, because it's an infinite distance. But what are we going to do? We are going to create a connection. How do we create a connection? By doing what God asks of us to do. And that's why the word for mitzvah is the same word as savta, which means a connection, a bond, a chibur. Savta v'chibur. It's a connection. It's something that holds us together. Savta.
Tzadik.
Yeah.
No, I thought you said savta.
Oh, no.
Grandmother. I said, what are you talking
No. Savta. From the word mitzvah,
Ah.
savta v'chibur. It's a connection and a bond.
Savta ze yachad.
Exactly. A connection, a bond,
Okay.
a thing that's holding us together. Because when God commands us, this is how we are connecting to God. By doing something that God says, just like in a relationship, if the spouse says, please just do this for me, and you might not understand, why does he need me to do that for him? Like, I don't understand why. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it because this is what you asked of me. You know, you have a special dish that this is the way you like your dish. I'm doing it because this is what you want. You have a craziness that you don't want your socks on the floor. Okay, I'm doing it for you. You know, I'm doing it just because this is what you want. So this is why we do mitzvot. And this is what we learn from Avraham, from the fact that the Torah portion starts not by telling us all about Avraham's greatness, not by telling us about what Avraham is doing, how he does all these good things, not by telling us about Avraham's brilliance, his intellectual superiority, how he realized from a young age that there's a creator in this world, and he got to this level of understanding about God. None of this. We're not talking about any of this awareness of good deeds. We're just simply saying God chose Avraham. Why? Because God chose us, because God loves us. And that's what we have to remember. So when we are on our own journey to Judaism, or if someone doesn't know anything about Judaism, how do we start the journey? So of course you want to teach them. You want to teach them about Torah. You want to teach them about mitzvot. They should understand it. But the real important thing for each and every one of us, we want to get a little higher in our level and in our connection to God. Just do it. It's not about just understanding. Of course you want to understand. But the main point is, do it.
Do what?
Do the mitzvot.
Do the mitzvot.
Yeah, for example, you want to know about Shabbat. So there's two ways to do it. You could start learning all about every law of Shabbat. You know, and then you could start learning all about the philosophy of why we keep Shabbat and what a day of rest does for the person and on a psychological level. You can learn all that. Or you could start by just keeping it. And by keeping it, you have that soul connection. You're experiencing it. It's not about just learning it. You know, sometimes you can learn and learn and learn and study and study and study, but you're not experiencing it, because you might know it on an intellectual level. You might even know it on an emotional level, but you're not actually feeling it on a spiritual level. So when someone is starting their journey in Judaism, when they want to understand more about Judaism, of course you're going to explain what it means. But the main thing is do it. Because it's with doing the mitzvot, doing this connection, that we connect to God. That's how we connect. And you could do a mitzvah and not even understand all the particulars of how you're doing it and why you're doing it. Because there's so many layers. I mean, if we're going to start to understand mitzvot and why we do it, which we should, that's another part. We should try to understand it. But the first step is just do it. Because if you're going to start to just only do it once you understand it, and you understand all the different parts to it, and you're going to all the different layers, Kabbalistically what it means, and psychologically what it means, and emotionally what it means, just do it. Connect your soul to it. And this is what we learned from this week's Torah portion, that it starts with Lech Lecha, just go. It starts with Avraham, just go. And what is God saying to him? Where should he go? So God is telling him, Lech Lecha, go, me artzecha, from your land. And the word artzecha has in it the word ratzon, which means will. Yes, this is beautiful. Yeah. So God is saying there are times when you have to leave your personal will, your desires, right? Oh. Leave them. You want to get to a higher state of morality. You want to get to a higher state of selflessness. You want to get to a higher state of purpose and mission. Leave the what you know in order to explore something deeper, something better, something more meaningful, something more purposeful. So what do you have to leave? First of all, artzecha, your ratzon. We have these wills, we have these desires, we have these temptations. Leave that. You want to get to a higher level of purpose and meaning? Leave your will. Me artzecha. The next thing that we need to leave, moladetcha. What's moladetcha? Moladetcha is your birthplace. Sorry?
Oh yeah, where you're born.
Where you're born, what you're used to, your emotional tendencies, your natural inclinations, a person might have a natural inclination to get upset. Leave that. Leave that. Leave your natural tendencies. Leave what makes you comfortable. Leave what makes you feel very stuck in your own mindset. Leave it, because we want to bring you to a higher place. So moladetcha is your natural tendencies, your emotional tendencies. Let's strive to burst out of that, to get out of that, to reach to something higher. And finally, good, but before that, umi beit avicha. Be beit avicha, your father's home. This refers to av, Kabbalistically refers to chachma, which is wisdom. Even your wisdom leave. Even your wisdom, we're very small in what we can understand. So if you want to gain a new perspective on life, if you want to gain a new perspective and a wider understanding on your purpose and your mission here, go out even of your intellect to be willing to approach a new understanding that's much deeper and much wider. So these are the things that God is telling him. Leave your ratzon, leave your desires, leave your natural tendencies and inclinations, leave even your intellect to be able to appreciate a new perspective. I'm going to show you something that's way beyond that, way beyond the confinement. And when we think of this on a personal level, there's so often that we are so stuck. We're stuck in our mindset. We're stuck in what our habits, what we're used to. We're stuck in our little comfort zone of what makes us comfortable, that we're not even ready to take any risks or any chances because we're just so stuck. And God is saying to us, you want to get a new perspective? You want to broaden your horizons? You want to broaden your understanding? You want to broaden your awareness? You want to get to a deeper understanding of your purpose and mission in this world? Leave all that and go to the land that I will show you. Come with me. Come with me and I will show you this place. So that's Lech Lecha. That's what Avram is told to go. And he goes and he follows God. and he leaves all these things behind, and he becomes Avraham in the process, and he goes to the land of Canaan where he's going to teach his understanding, teach monotheism to the world, teach what this higher level of morality. And what happens? There's a famine in the land. There's a famine, he's tested. And often we see that when we're doing something, and you might even be trying, you have sometimes something that stops you. And you think, hey, I'm doing everything right. What's going on? Right? And that thing that stops you might just be that thing that you need to show. Is this really what I'm trying to do? What am I made of? Am I made of strong enough stuff that I can get through this? Is this going to stop me? Or am I going to persevere? How much do I really want this new level, this new stage, this new phase? How much am I really willing to give for it? And so the famine is not going to stop him, but he decides he's going to go to the land of Mitzrayim, where he again encounters the next challenge. So he's going to the land of Mitzrayim, and as we said, he realizes that Sara is an extremely beautiful woman. And he says, I know that the people of Egypt are going to lust her. They're going to want her. So what does he do? He says to her, and it's interesting because the pasuk says that Vayihi kivo Avram Mitzrayim. Vayihi, and it was kivo Avram, when Avram came to Mitzrayim. And the question is, what do you mean when Avram came? He's going with Sara. What does it mean when he came to Mitzrayim? Where's Sara? So the Midrash tells us that what happened was Avram realized that Sara was a very beautiful woman. He told her, I'm going to put you in this big chest, this wooden chest. I'm going to hide you there so they won't see you. So they won't see you and they won't lust for you. And when they're passing the border there, the tax people the border patrol say, what's in this box? And he says, something that's important to me, please don't open it. And they say, what do you mean? Maybe it's precious stones in here. He says, I'll pay you the taxes for precious stones. Maybe it's even more than precious stones. I'll pay you whatever you want, because Avram had money. And they said, no, we're not able to do it. They opened it up and they see Sara. So Avram says to Sara, say that you are my sister, so that it will be good for me. What is he saying to her? He's saying, if they see you, when they see you, say that you're my sister. So if they think that I'm your husband, then what will they do? They'll kill me and take you. Instead, say that you're my sister. And the way of the world was at the time that the brother would negotiate for the marriage of his sister. So they're going to negotiate with me what kind of dowry to give for you, what kind of money to give for you, and I'll name a price that's so exorbitant that no one will be able to afford it. And in that way, we'll both be saved. Except Avram didn't realize that who was actually going to want Sarah? The king himself. The people brought Sarah to the king himself. They said, this woman is so extraordinary, beautiful, that the king himself should have her. And so Avram is taken with Sara. Sara is taken into the palace to the king. And here is where we're told that it says that Paro is plagued. There's a plague that afflicts Paro and all his household. Al Dvar Sara. So you could read it Al Dvar Sara because of the matter of Sara, because of the fact that he took Sara. But you can also read it Al Dvar Sara because of the word, Dvar, Dibur, because of the word of Sara, meaning every time Paro went close to approach Sara, Sara said to the angel that was accompanying her, hit him. And he hit him, he hit Paro, and Paro wasn't able to get anywhere near her, any close to her. And in this way, that was why Paro said, like, this angel's just beating him up every time he tries to get closer. Something's wrong here. And he returns Sara to Abraham. So this is how we understand what's going on, but we can still have like a little bit of a question. How could Avram risk this? Like he's risking Sara. Sara will be taken to the king's, by the king himself. How could he risk it? And more than that, Avram even says to Sarah, tell them you're my sister so that it will be good for me because of you. So they'll give me riches because of you. And it seems like, and that's what happened. They gave, Paro released Sarah to Avram and compensated this whole episode, this whole sorry episode, with a lot of riches that he gives to Avram. And Avram and Sarah then leave Egypt with a tremendous amount of wealth given to them by the king. But the question is, how could Avram compromise Sarah in that way? How could he allow her to be taken? And how could he even be thinking about the riches that he's going to be getting because she's going to be taken and possibly violated? It seems so contrary to who Avram was. He cared about everybody, and what about his own wife? He's allowing this to happen to her. And so the Zohar tells us that what was going on here, Avram knew that when he's coming to Egypt with Sarah, there's a purpose. Every time that we travel in life, every place that we find ourselves in, there's a purpose to why we're here. And every one of us has things that we need to elevate in that situation. We need to use the things that we're given in life and elevate those things that we're given. We might need to speak with people and communicate with people and elevate them in that way. We might need to actually elevate the physical things, the material things that we're given. So the reason why Karina was left with this beautiful home and has this beautiful home is so she can elevate this home, the walls of the home, the physical table of the home, the food that she prepares in this home. She's elevating all these things in her service of God. Each and every one of us has our own corner of what we're given in this world, and the people that we're interacting with and the things that we're interacting with are there so that we can purify these things, we can elevate these things, or in Kabbalistic terms, we can find the sparks of holiness in these things and elevate them for a positive reason. So Avram knew that him and Sarah have a mission here in Mitzrayim. They have a mission to accomplish here in Egypt. But when he's going down to Egypt, he also realized that it wasn't him who's going to be able to accomplish this mission, but rather this mission would be accomplished in the merit of his wife, of Sarah. He realized that Sarah was greater than him, and that Sarah, it was only through Sarah that he was going to be able to accomplish whatever he says, I know I have a mission here. I know that we're sent here to Egypt for a reason, and we need to leave Berechush Gadol with a lot of material wealth, which doesn't only mean material wealth according to Kabbalah. It means we need to elevate whatever is here and raise the sparks of whatever is here, elevate it, the physical reality, for something higher, for a greater purpose. But I can't do this myself. This is not something that I have the power to do. But Sarah, she's someone who is extremely spiritually great, spiritually forceful. She's going to have that power. And how did Avram see it? He saw this angel that was accompanying Sarah wherever she went. And he saw this angel accompanying her, and this was the angel that told Paro, that she told Paro, hit him every time he came near to her, so that he left. He told her, leave, get out of here. This is not right. I realize I'm doing something wrong. But Avram saw this. He saw this in Sarah. And we're told, just like when our forefathers went, Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim, which means that what the forefathers did is a sign for their children. Everything that they went through in their lives was like a map, a skill set that was designed for us to learn from and for us to see, because it's in our lives. So when Avram and Sarah are in Egypt, they're actually forging the path for future generations to be in Egypt, to get out from Egypt, to leave Egypt with this rechush gadol, with this ability of achieving their mission and accomplishing what they're supposed to be doing there. Who is this? Later on, the Jewish people who were exiled into Egypt, that they were able to leave too, rechush gadol, with this great amount of wealth, to pull out the sparks of holiness from this place. And who, when the Jewish people left, who was it in the merit of?
I'm not sure.
When the Jewish people left Egypt.
Mitzrayim?
Yes, Mitzrayim. Who was it? Bishut?
Moshe.
Well, Moshe, yes, but who
Ah.
was Moshe was the leader, but who? What was the schut that they had? Who was the merit of who? Who was the ones? The Jewish woman, the Jewish woman who
Really?
maintained their faith, the Jewish woman who kept on. We're gonna see, yes, the woman go, the woman rock. It was the woman who had that faith the entire time. The woman who encouraged their husbands. The woman who said, even though Paro wants to kill the boys, we still need to have children. We still need to continue on the Jewish people. The woman who would go to their husbands and say, this long, long, terrible, horrible exile is gonna end. Yes.
Let me ask you, so why in the Jewish tradition, women are second level?
That's why we're learning, because it's not.
Thank you.
That's what you need to learn. That's
yes,
exactly
but in
it.
practical, you
Were
can
you
see-
ever in a Jewish woman's house? Who holds the power?
No, for instance, when you go,
That's right, right?
when you go to a shul, right? Women are on the top, in old synagogue.
In old
And
synagogue.
men are in there. Nice big room, and women are.
But that is true also.
That is
Right?
true. That is
That
true.
is true.
First of all, we need to change that, because that's not the way it should
Absolutely.
be.
You can be on
And
the same level and you can be still split and you can be separated.
Exactly.
I know, but
Do you understand the concept of why a woman is separate from not being by the men?
no.
Mars Ayin, men are attractive to us, so we have to be separate. We have menstrual cycles and we have dam. And because of that, we don't know when we're pure or not pure, and we should not be
Oh,
by the
that's
Holy
the
Torah.
reason.
well, that's not 100%.
Okay.
Right.
No.
But there's
Right.
still separations because of that.
But women are beautiful with the hair, and women are beautiful. So
Okay, so first of all, we need to.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to hold
But
conversation.
on Kabbalah, it's like equal. You can see everything.
Well, yes,
Like, when you
100%.
sit,
It could be definitely equal. It should be equal. It should be like straight through the middle, and it should be able to be something that you could see. However,
yeah,
in Judaism, where is the power? Where is the most important place in Judaism is not in the synagogue. It's in the home. It's the home that builds the Jewish woman, the Jewish family. So yeah, we have the synagogue because we need to do the prayers and we need to do the different parts and we need to read from the Torah. But where is the important part of where the Jewish community is continuing? That's in the home. And who is the center of the home? The woman. Akara Tabayit. She's the person who's the ikar. She's the mainstay of her home. That's what
nice.
Akara Tabayit is. She's the
Oh,
ikar.
I like it.
So you're right. You know, sometimes the men have this men's club in shul. And again, it shouldn't be. It should be straight down the middle, and it should be something that's comfortable for women. And in today's synagogues, you will find that it will be properly done, and it will be done in a way that women are perfectly comfortable. But where is really, that's just the men's club. Where is really the center of Judaism? That's in the home, in each and every one of us in our homes. And who is the one that's the cornerstone of that? That is the Jewish woman. That is the ikar. Akara Tabayis, the Jewish woman, is the cornerstone of her home. So getting back to this, does that answer?
Yes.
Okay. So getting back to this, though, we see that just like Sara was the one who had that power, and Avram realized that she's the powerful one, she's going to be the one who, in her merit, we're going to leave this place. And not only are we going to leave this place, but we're going to leave with the purpose and the mission of why we're here. We're going to leave because of her, and we're going to succeed because of her. Similarly, the Jewish people left Egypt also, as just like she was the one who had the merit, so too the Jewish people left Egypt, b'schut nashim tzidkanios, in the merit of the righteous women who were descendants of Sara and took the example of Sara and took the spiritual fortitude that they inherited from her and used the same qualities to also leave Egypt. And similarly, it says that the our generation is the last generation of galut, of exile, and we are reincarnations of that generation that left Egypt. And similarly, it says, this is not me making it up, this is in the holy books. It says in the schut of Nashim Tzidkaniot, of righteous women in our generation, we are going to leave the exile. Just like the first exile was in merit of the Jewish women who were the strong ones, who kept the faith, who kept so strong and so full of emunah, belief in God. Similarly, now in our generation, we are the women who are going to be leading us out of this exile.
To go back to Israel?
To go back to Israel and
Have
to
the
have
tambourine ready.
the tambourine is ready with Mashiach. And okay, so let's just mention one more thing on the same note about the women, and you're saying, where do we see that women are so great? So we see this as well.
Women are great, don't
Yeah, no. But where do we see this in the Torah?
Yes.
So we really have to just look properly in the Torah because it's full of it. We just have to open our eyes to see it. So later on in the parsha, towards the end of the parsha, we said there was this change of name. Avram goes to Avram, becomes Avraham, and Sarai becomes Sarah. So first of all, the name. What's happening here is that they're both going from our particular mission to a universal mission. We have Avram, which means Avram, a great father, to Av Hamon Gayim. He's going to be the father of a multitude of nations, the father of the world. And we have Sarah is going from Sarai, which means my princess, my superior. Avraham called Sarah. Sarah's name was originally Yiska, which means a sweet, she had a prophetic vision. Yiska means to be able to see. She was able to see, have a prophetic vision that saw very, very far. Yiska. Yud Samech Chaf He. Yiska. Lasuach.
Oh, limroch b'shemen.
She was able to, no, it means she was able to see. She had a certain vision that she had prophecy. It refers to her prophecy. But Avram changed her name to Sarai. And the reason why he called her Sarai was my princess, my superior, because he realized that she was superior to him in prophecy. So her name is going from Sarai, this name that Avraham gave her, of my superior, to Sarah, to this princess of the world, not just Avram's princess, not Avram's superior, but princess par excellence, princess of the world, this superior being of the world, this mother of the entire world. Now, when we look at the name change, which is what enabled, sometimes we say a change in name causes a change of destiny. And that's why when someone is sick, we'll change their name.
Yes.
We'll add a name. We'll add Chaim, or we'll add altar, like Altar Yamim, like for long life. We'll add something to give them some extra spiritual infusion, right? And similarly, we see here that there was a change in name that causes a change of destiny. They could not have children. They were ready. Avram was 99 years old. Sarah was 89 years old, no children. And yet the change in name is what caused them to enable them to have this change of a spiritual change that affected it in a very tangible way that enabled them to have children. And when we look at this change in name, so let's look at the letters of the name. We see that we have Sarai, which is Sin, Resh, Yud, right? We're taking away the Yud, and we're replacing it with a
Hey.
Yud is how much?
10.
10. We're replacing it with a
Hey,
which is
Chamesh.
5. So we have 5 left over. We have Hey, 5 left over. We're taking Avram's name, which is Avram, and we're adding in Avraham, the Hey. So do you see what we're doing? We're taking from Sarah's spirituality, from her spiritual fortitude, her Yud, and we're dividing it, sharing half with her and half with
That's
Avram.
nice.
Her ability to share of her spiritual wealth with Avraham to enable him to now have a child with her. We see as well, we said that the name Sarai, we said that Yud, we divided it into two Hays, but that Yud itself disappeared. And where did it go? Anyone know where that Yud?
Yitzchak.
Well, Yitzchak, okay, but there was somebody's name who was changed, who added this extra Yud to his name. No, someone who went, when we talk about the Meraglim, the spies, Yehoshua's name was Hoshea, right? His name was Hoshea, and Moshe changed his name and said, now his name is Yehoshua.
Oh,
And the Midrash says, what happened? That Yud from Sarai's name said, oh, it's no fair. It's no fair that you're such a righteous woman. I want to be attached to her. So God says, don't worry, you'll be attached to another righteous person, Yehoshua. And it was that change of name, that power again from Sarai, that spiritual power that enabled Yehoshua to stay strong and not be influenced by all the other spies. So these are the different things that we see, the strength of the Jewish woman in this week's Torah portion. We also see the strength of us as the Jewish people in just doing. Lech lecha, just do it in connecting to God. And unfortunately, there's one more thing that we see that was not good, and that was when Abraham was told that he will have another child from Sarai, whose name was now Sarah. He says, what about Yishmael? And he actually prays to God for Yishmael. And he says, Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. If only Yishmael will also live before you. Meaning he'll also grow into being a good person. Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. If only Yishmael will live before you. And the Zohar teaches us that these were very sad words spoken for the Jewish people, because these words portended how in the end of days, the days that we're in right now, this Yishmael, the descendants of Yishmael, are going to cause a tremendous amount of problems for the Jewish people, which is what we're suffering right now. It says right in the end of days, this is going to happen, and the problems that we have with Yishmael are thanks to these words, this prayer that we have, Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. However, we know that ultimately Yitzchak and the Jewish people are going to persevere, and we will persevere because this is our mission in life, because Ata b'chartanu mikol amin, because God chose us. So when we think about us as the Jewish people, it's not about what we're doing, it's not about even the mitzvot that we're doing, it's not about the Torah study that we're doing. God simply chose us, and we need to remember that. Now, if God chose us, obviously we want to feel close to God as well. So obviously we're going to learn Torah, and obviously we're going to do mitzvot, because we want to get close to God, and this is the only way that we can get close to God. But the reason why we are close to God is simply and only because God chose us. And that is something that can give us a lift in our day, in times when we're feeling like I'm not good enough, and I'm not doing enough, and I'm, not worthy enough. We can just remember, God thinks you're worthy enough. God chose you, so obviously you're worthy enough. And now we can just try on working on the details. So that is what we learned from this week's Torah portion of Lech Lecha.